What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's Dell Technologies Match Play. This is by far my favorite event of the year. It is the only event on the calendar in which, if you had no knowledge of golf or match play, but you just had a little bit of insight on how to build lineups, you would have an edge this week. And then the more you know, the better things get. So this is a very strategic week. I'm going to give you content that is very different than the normal set of content, because this is bracket style. There's a lot of game theory. There is a lot of building optimal lineups. And I have a tool for you that will remove the heartache of hand building lineups. I'll explain all this to you, but I could not be more excited about this, and it's going to be an absolute blast. This event starts on Wednesday, okay? So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that is the round robin stages, and then they go to the elimination stages. More on that in just a second. So what that means is you got to get your lineups in early, you got to get your bets in early, and also the live chat is going to be Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel, where we can go through even more and more of this great stuff. Additionally, because this is a bracket, it would not be without a bracket challenge. So here's what I have for you. The Rick Run Good bracket challenge is on the PGA Tour's fantasy website right now. It is a private group. Last year, this was by far the largest private group on the PGA Tour's fantasy site. I want to run that back. I want to show the PGA Tour where the passion lies. I want to show the PGA Tour that we can show up. We care about this. We care about it every single day. And when they look at the top of the board of their own fantasy website, they're going to see us. That's what I want. Not a public league that anybody can get in and they can say, well, a lot of people just stumbled into it. No, a private league where only we can get in and we're at the top. That's what I want. So it's the Rick Run Good Bracket Challenge. There's a link in the description. The password to get in is Tiger, Tiger, all lowercases. I have supplemented some prizes for this year. So, you know, you'll get glory and pride if you win the bracket challenge, but I'm also going to give you a little bit more. If you win, I'll give you a year subscription to RickRunGood.com. I will send you a swag box of merchandise, and I will pay for a year of ESPN Plus for you so that you can watch as much golf as humanly possible. If you finish second, I'll still send you a swag box, and you'll get a 6-month subscription to RickRunGood.com for all the tools, all the data, all the information. Finish 3rd through 10th, Rick Run Good monthly subscription, okay? It's coming from me. And then just for kicks, whoever finishes in the position of the winning seed. So if the guy who's the 47th overall seed wins, the person who has the 47th best bracket, 47th place, will win a 6-month subscription to RickRunGood.com. So a little bit of luck, a little bit of good fortune, all that fun stuff. But this is a week unlike any other, truly, with the way that it plays out in fantasy circles and the mistakes that people are going to make that we are not going to make. And unfortunately, without this being on the schedule for next year, it really grinds me. So we are just going to go nuts this week on content and data and information. And I thank you for coming along for the ride. Let's look at the bracket. The bracket. Look how beautiful it is. Look how amazing it is. Here it is, the bracket. Before anybody asks, the link is in the description. If you want access to this bracket so that you can copy it and do whatever you want with it, link is in the description. You want to join the fantasy or the bracket challenge, link is in the description. You want to use RickRunGood.com and sign up and use all the great tools, link is in the description. Here it is. So the way that this works is the top 16 seeds all have their own group. Scotty Scheffler, number 1. John Rahm, number 2. So on and so forth, all the way down to 16, which is, where am I looking here? Oh, Sung J M. Sung J M is the 16th seed. So they all have their own groups. And then basically what happened Monday morning is they drew from the next group of golfers, the B players, to put in each one of these groups, then a C player in each one of these groups, and then a D player in each one of these groups based on official world golf rankings. And what it gives you is 4 golfers across those different A, B, C, and D in each group. Now, once you're in your group, you will play the other 3 members of your group once each on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The winner of each group will advance. So it'll go based on your record, and then if there are any ties, they go to a sudden death playoff on Wednesday afternoon on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On Friday afternoon, after all the matches are complete, they go back out there and they get a winner. So from this 64, 16 winners will emerge from these groups. So here's the whole game. The whole game for this week is creating optimal lineups. You are going to hear me say that 10,000 times. I apologize in advance. But simply creating optimal lineups gives you the biggest edge. What is an optimal lineup? An optimal lineup is a lineup that has 6 golfers with 6 clear paths to the Elite 8 and 4 clear paths to the Final 4. For example, should you select in one single lineup Scottie Scheffler and Tom Kim? Well, obviously not. They are both in the same group. So only one of them can advance into the elimination stage, okay? Only one is going to advance. Should you pick Scottie Scheffler and Sungjae Im in the same lineup? No, because even if they both advance out of their group, which would be interesting, they would run into each other immediately in the Sweet 16, thus limiting your ability to get 6 golfers to the Elite 8 and 4 golfers to the Final 4. So the rules are pretty simple here. And while the rules are simple, they are not done in practice. I'll more on that in just a second. So the rules are simple. You cannot take 2 golfers from the same group. Someone will say, there will be comments that say, Rick, what about I guarantee myself, 2 people, I get 2 of the 4 coming out of the group, so I know somebody's going to come out. No, we've run the math on this like a billion times. Here are the rules. You cannot pick 2 golfers from the same group. You cannot pick 2 golfers from adjacent groups, neighboring groups. So that means if you pick a golfer from group 1, you cannot pick a golfer from group 16. You pick a golfer from group 5, you cannot pick a golfer from group 12. Okay? Because they're going to run into each other too soon. You also, it doesn't matter if you have 3 on the left-hand side of the bracket and 3 on the right-hand side of the bracket, as long as you have 6 paths to the Elite 8 and 4 to the Final 4. The only thing you can't do is you can't pick 6 golfers from only 3 quadrants. Okay? Because if you picked all 6 of your golfers from upper left, bottom left, and upper right, you would not have 4 clear paths to the Final 4. You could, in theory, have 6 paths to the Elite 8, but you will not have 4 paths to the Final 4. And I know what you might be thinking, Rick, you're an idiot. How in the world am I going to accomplish this? Right? How in the world am I going to accomplish this? Well, in the past, years ago, we hand-built all of these lineups, right? And we would go through and we'd spend hours and hours and hours. We'd hand-build all these lineups because we knew we had a huge edge. What does that edge look like? 30% of lineups last year were like dead. They did not have the ability to hit the optimal lineup. They were dead. Now, this is actually getting better each and every year. So in 2018, 60% of lineups were basically dead. They were not built optimally. So we're getting a little bit sharper. About 30% last year were not built optimally. Even if it goes to like 15% this year, you're basically playing these contests rake-free is essentially what that is. So just making sure you're doing this correctly is so advantageous to you. Now, I don't expect you in 2023 to hand build all of these lineups. So what I've done is I've worked with my buddy who built me the old lineup optimizer on RickRunGood.com, and I've brought it back for the match play. So that looks like this. Simple in appearance, powerful in practice. So there are multiple things going on RickRunGood.com this week. There's the custom model, which I will leave up for the match play for a while, but then I will switch to Punta Cana so that you can run the Punta Cana lineups. However, this match play optimizer is a 1 week only, and you can upload any data that you want. You can use any value that you want for projected points, for randomness, for maximum exposure. You can do anything you want here. I'll include my projections, but you can do whatever you want, and then I'll update the ownership. But what we have done, this is chef's kiss, like grazie mille, like this is so good. I have already loaded in the rules for you. That's right. I have loaded in the rules. So here are the rules. There are 12 of them. Basically, I won't bore you with the details, but the rules are at most one of any golfer from each adjacent group. Okay. So at most, only one golfer from group 1, group 16, group 9, group 8, group 5, group 12, so on and so forth. So that you cannot get stuck with 2 golfers in the same group, nor could you get stuck with 2 golfers from adjacent groups. So it takes 8 rules to write those. I've written those for you, and they're already preloaded into the lineup optimizer. Additionally, you cannot have more than 5 golfers from each one, or you cannot have 5 golfers from 3 quadrants. So that's 4 additional rules. So I've wrote those rules in for you, essentially saying at most 5 golfers from these 3 quadrants, 5 golfers from these 3, 5 golfers from these 3, and 5 golfers from these 3, leaving 1 out each time. So I've written these rules for you. If you came into the Rick Run Good Match Play Lineup Optimizer, loaded in any value that you want, or used my projections or combination, and pressed 150 lineups, generate me 150 lineups, they will all be built optimally, which is removing the biggest concern that I would have for you in this week. So very, very proud of this. I'm happy we could get this up and running. It's once a year thing, and who knows, we might not ever need it again, but very happy. So Colton is his name. Colton does a great job for the site. He was able to get this up and running for me again, and it's so cool. So we've loaded in the rules for you. Have at it. Have a day. Get rocking and rolling there. Now, we've got to talk about a couple of other items here. We've got to talk about, we'll go through each one of these groups, but we have to talk about the volatility of this event. So this event, when you look at this, you're like, how can Scottie Scheffler not win this whole thing, right? How can that happen? It's a pretty volatile event, right? Match play in general is very volatile. One swing in either direction. So I tweeted this out a little bit earlier, but I'll show you now. The top seeds in this event, the guys that own their own group, the top 16, have historically not done very well. Or I shouldn't say that. They've been fine, but it's not like I see brackets getting built where all the top 16 guys are getting through. Like that is not going to happen, right? So last year was actually the most. 8 out of 16 golfers of the top seeds got out of their group. That ties the record. That also happened in 2016. In 2021, one top seed got out of their group. It was Jon Rahm. In 2020, it was canceled. In 2019, 2018, 2017, and 2015, exactly 5 out of 16 top seeds got out of their group. So historically, since we've been doing this, 33% of the top seeds have actually advanced out of the group stage and into the elimination stage. So what I would encourage you to do is not create brackets where 12 or 14 or 16 of the top seeds get out. That is probably not going to happen. So what you could also do, and I did not want to do this for you, but what I will probably do in my runs is I will probably set another rule, which you can do, and say, at most, let's say at most 5 of the top seeds, and I would list the top seeds, Jon Rahm, Scottie Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, and I would write a rule that says at most, 5 of these guys advance or something like that. Or at most, in my lineups, I could say at most like 2 of these guys or at most 3 of these guys. That way you're not just leaning heavily on the top seeds. And in a DFS format, you're probably not going to be able to afford them all anyway. But when you're making your brackets, keep that in mind because it's been very, very difficult for the top seeds to get out at a ridiculously high clip. In fact, more than at most 50% of them have gotten through. That's the record. So let's talk through these groups, right? And you'll obviously see how my bracket ends up shaking out when I put it into the bracket challenge, and you'll probably get a pretty good idea of what I think is going to happen this week, but building optimally for fantasy purposes is going to be critical. And then obviously I have the cheat sheet here on RickRunGood.com, so you can see recent form and you can see, history at this event. I'll also load in their group numbers so that you can easily see it on the cheat sheet as well. But let's look at this at these groups. Let's just start with group number 1. Scotty Scheffler, Tom Kim, Alex Noren, and Davis Riley. This is a pretty pro Scotty group, I think. We'll talk about some other groups that I don't think are great draws. Outside of Tom Kim, I'm not sure there's going to be a ton of resistance here for Scotty Scheffler. I think if you guys have been following along, I'm obviously a massive believer in what Scotty has done just in general and also from tee to green. He doesn't really even have to putt well. He's relentless in a match play format. It's going to be very difficult to beat. He's not only our defending champion, but he finished runner-up the year before. He gained 17 strokes from tee to green at TPC Sawgrass. He gained over 13 and a half in Phoenix. I mean, he's just an absolute monster. He's just an absolute monster in a format that goes really well for guys that don't get too high, don't get too low, who has a great voice like Ted Scott on the bag. Like, very, very pro Scotty group here. The winner of that group is going to face the winner of Group 16, which is Sungjae Im, Tommy Fleetwood, JT Post, and Maverick McNeely. This is, to me, actually a pretty competitive group. Sungjae, very clearly the best player, but I don't think it's super crazy to call Tommy Fleetwood close, right? What Tommy Fleetwood has been doing, and I'll pull it up, another close call last week in Florida at the Valspar where he finishes T3, and it's this well-rounded game that Tommy Fleetwood possesses, which is really scary in this format. Very good from tee to green, but a stout short game where maybe he chips in, maybe he rolls a putt in on you and changes the tides, which happens in match play quite often. So we've got a stretch of really good golf from Tommy Fleetwood. And I'll contrast that to or compare it to Sungjae Im's stat profile, and Sungjae's been great as well, right? I mean, the ball striking's there, 7 strokes in the ball striking categories at the Players Championship, T21 at API. He's been playing great golf. He's back to himself. But in this format, those are 2 pretty stout guys at the top, and then you add in JT Poston and Mav McNeely, who can get hot with the putter and ruin this for somebody, right? Like this group 16 is very competitive and it is filled with spoilers. So if I was looking at exposure and I was building 150 lineups, I would have some pretty equal exposure out of this group because I think it's fairly wide open. Other side of the bracket, group number 2, Jon Rahm, Billy Horschel, Keith Mitchell, Ricky Fowler. I think this is a pretty bad draw for Jon Rahm, right? Jon Rahm is clearly the best player in the field. He is probably the best player in the world. If you look at the last 36 rounds on RickRunGood.com, there are 4 golfers who are gaining more than 2 strokes per round in the last 36 across all tours. Jon Rahm's the best. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Jason Day. And there's a pretty big gap from Rory to Jason Day. It's about a half a stroke per round. So it's still a big 3 that we are living in here. But when you get a group of Billy Horschel, who has won this event before, who loves himself some match play, when you get a group of, Keith Mitchell, who has been, who he has an elite skill set. He has the driver, which is when you have to face an elite skill set in match play, like it kind of sucks. And he's a great driver of the golf ball. He's much better in the short game areas. He's playing some great golf right now. And then Ricky Fowler, who is much improved. The thing with this being, tied to the OWGR rankings is, Ricky's playing better than his ranking indicates, right? Like Ricky's a D group guy. Ricky's a D group guy that is, in the last 36 rounds, he's the 11th best player in this field. Like, this is a really, really tough group. Keith Mitchell's 16th, and Billy Horschel is, I guess he's further down than that. Where's Billy? Did I scroll? Okay, Billy's 61st, but, it's match play. Anything can happen. But basically, you've got 3 top 16 players and a guy who has won this event in this group. This might be the group of death. I'll analyze all this and run the stroke skate numbers and all that fun stuff and throw in the group odds as we go along. So subscribe to my newsletter. It's rickrungood.com/newsletter. I'll send out all this stuff. I'll tweet it all out. But that looks like the group of death already. So might be avoiding some Jon Rahm, especially because we're going to see in a second what's coming out of group 15. But man, I would not mind Keith Mitchell here. I would not mind Ricky Fowler out of this group. I would not mind taking a crack that group 2 just beats the crap out of each other. Then whoever comes out of group 2 is going to have to face group 15, which for me is the Cam Young group. Cam Young, we've talked about him a lot. This is devastatingly tough to play Cam Young in this format. He is a very long hitter who's striping it. 7 strokes gained on approach, in the ball striking categories at both Riviera and Bay Hill. He was pretty good at the Players Championship. He still has to find the putter, but historically he's a much better putter than he's putting right now. He's the 4th best birdie maker over the last 50 rounds in this field, and he just got Paul Tesori on the bag, right? Paul Tesori and Webb Simpson have split. Cam Young is now going to loop with Paul Tesori, which is exciting and might be able to unlock a lot of cool stuff for them. And I just believe this is going to be devastatingly tough to play Cam Young in this format. And Sepp Straka, Corey Connors, Davis Thompson, no disrespect to those guys, because I think Connors can be tough in a format like this. This feels like a Cam Young freight train, doesn't it? So we'll see where that can go. Back to the other side of the bracket, 9 and 8. 9 is Colin Morikawa, Jason Day, Adam Svensson, Victor Perez. Pretty tough draw. Victor Perez, I'm pretty high on. We talked about that last week, but man, Svensson's a low-key sleeper out of Group C here. Jason Day, who I just talked about, has been basically the 4th best player in this field in the last 36 rounds. He has won this event before, even if it was however long ago. I don't think he's done as well in this new format, but he won it when it was single elimination, and now he's playing great golf since then. This feels like it could be pretty wide open as well. If you made me, we'll see what the odds are and all that stuff. But Svensson coming out of this group is pretty interesting. I'll pull up Svensson's profile for you here. Let's see. The problem with Morikawa in this format, so here's Svensson. Gains 4 strokes ball striking at API, 4.8 at the Players Championship. He's putting well. He's going to be a tough out. Svensson's going to be a tough out in this thing. And the problem with Morikawa is you might just catch him on a week where he just doesn't make any putts. And it's pretty, it's pretty important to make putts in match play. First guy in usually wins, right? Like first in wins is the saying in match play. And yeah, Morikawa might boat race you and hit everything to 8 feet and start making them. But there's a path to this being a pretty tough draw and a pretty tough format for Morikawa. He did win his group last year. He failed to advance after that. So he got to the Sweet 16 and lost in that match. Group 8. So the winner of that Group 9 group will play Group 8, which is Hovland, Chris Kirk, Siwoo Kim, Matt Kuchar. Kuchar's been good in this format, but again, this is pretty tough. Siwoo was great at the President's Cup. He showed the match play chops there, and we know how hot he can get. Chris Kirk is just coming off a win a couple of weeks ago, but as you can probably imagine here, I just love everything about what Victor's doing. The ball striking numbers are elite. I think he's the 2nd best ball striker in this field over the last 16 rounds. It's +9, +10, +6, +5. All at big time events. The younger guys usually play match play more frequently, or at least have more frequently, whether it was in college, whether it was at a U.S. amateur. Victor's got the Ryder Cup experience. I mean, he plays a lot of match play. This is, to me, his group to come out of here in Group 9. Across the other side, Tony Finau, Kurt Kitayama, Adrian Morant, Christian Bezuidenhout out of Group 10. Historically, Tony so I hate to say this, but is Tony too nice for match play? Last 4 trips, so 2018 on, he has never made it out of his group. I don't know. I do think there is a mentality thing about match play that might not fit well for everybody, and Tony Finau has struggled here. Kurt Kitayama is an absolute bulldog, okay? Kurt Kitayama, coming off the win at the API, he misses the cut at the Players. I'm not going to give him too much crap for that. Very easy to do. But when you get him now in a different little format change, this dude's going to give you problems. I truly believe that. He is he's just kind of cutthroat, man. He's not going to give up. We saw that at the API. He hung in there against a really stacked field. He'll drop some putts on you when he needs to. I think Kurt Kitayama's a really tough out of Group 10. Back to the left-hand side. Group 5, Group 12, Group 5, let's go. Max Homa, Hideki Matsuyama, Kevin Kisner, Justin Suh. It's a fun little group. Kisner listen, if Kisner burns me on this, he can burn me on this. I know that he's won this event. I know that he's finished runner-up twice. I know that he is a match play stud, but we are talking about a completely different version of Kevin Kisner right now. He is hemorrhaging strokes all over the place. That includes with the putter. It includes with the short game. And, of course, it includes from tee to green. He's lost 20 strokes from tee to green in his last 3 starts. That's only 8 rounds. Going back even further than that, he's hemorrhaged 8, 18, 26, like 30 strokes in his last 5 starts from tee to green alone. And he's lost with the putter in 4 out of those 5. This is not the blueprint for Kevin Kisner. If he flips the switch and figures out match play in Austin Country Club, more power to him. I do not necessarily see that happening. Max Homa, on the other hand, is a stallion. And Max Homa, who let's do the ball, like last 36 ball striking numbers. Let's see what we got here. Max Homa is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th best player in this field. From tee to green, he's even better than that. He's gaining with the putter. He is well-rounded, which is tough to beat in this format. He's also got a really good mindset and a really good partner in Joe Griner on the bag, where you just don't think he's ever going to get out like over his skis, right? And he's never going to get too flustered, and he's never going to be out of the moment. 2023, he's got a win, a third, a runner-up, a T6, and a T14. His worst finish was in Phoenix at a T39. That's his worst finish. You can say, Rick, what about his match play record? Well, he didn't make it out of the group in the last 2 years. He ran into DJ last year, who went 3-0 out of that group and went on to go to the Final Four, which I can give him a pass for. In the year prior, 2021, he went to a playoff, a 3-hole playoff out of group stage. They were tied, went to a 3-hole playoff with Billy Horschel, lost in a playoff to Billy Horschel. Billy Horschel went on to win the whole thing. So I think I can give him a pass on both of those. He's also much better now than he was. I think Max Homa might win this golf tournament, might win the whole thing. Max Homa, I mean, Hideki's been all over the place. Justin's fine, whatever. He's been playing better, but like, Homa's got an out here. He might run into somebody here in a second, but like, I love this path. I love this path for the bottom left-hand quadrant. Okay. Group 12. So the winner of that Homa group would play the winner of Spieth, Lowry, Taylor Montgomery, Mac Hughes. It's interesting. Hughes and Montgomery can get hot with the putter. Shane Lowry, I think, is struggling a little bit. Jordan Spieth would, I don't need to read off the match play stuff. Like, Jordan Spieth in a creative match play situation at Austin Country Club is just killer. And, one of the things that you always hear about Jordan Spieth is he goes as the putter goes, which is not really true. He goes as the approach play goes. When he was struggling at this point, 18 months ago, the ball striking was horrible. Even when the putter was there, he couldn't out putt his ball striking. And when he was going through the elite times, he was always gaining in the ball striking categories. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. +8 on approach in Phoenix, and gains including a 4 or more in 3 of his last 5. And he hasn't lost on approach since Pebble Beach, which is kind of crazy because that's a place he crushed. And the putter is gaining it. Like, Jordan Spieth, very dangerous, and gearing up for Jordan Spieth time of the year. So I think we might be headed towards a Spieth Homa match in the Sweet 16, which would be pretty sick. Other side of the bracket, Group 6, Group 11. Group 6 is Xander, Tom Hoge, Aaron Wise, Cam Davis. Aaron Wise, unfortunately, is kind of going down the route of Kevin Kisner, where all of it kind of looks lost. But this is pretty tough. Like, I don't know if I see Xander getting out of this group. Xander's great, but you're going to have to face Tom Hoge, who is... We've seen him get hot. We've seen him get hot recently, and he's a great approach player. And then you get the wild card of Cam Davis, who, missed those, 5 cuts in a row, and then told us that he was dealing with an illness and he wasn't right and it was influencing his game, and now he's feeling good again, and all of a sudden he goes out and finishes T6 at the Players' Championship. And if you've got healthy Cam Davis and all of his raw talent and the experience that he can glean from having a pretty darn good President's Cup for the international team, that's scary. So I would probably not be taking Xander out of this group. It doesn't necessarily mean I know who's going to come out of this group. I think Hoagie's got a pretty good chance. I think Cam Davis has a pretty good chance. I don't necessarily think Group 6 is one that Xander is loving right now. Group 11, so the winner of Group 6 would play the winner of Group 11. That's Matt Fitzpatrick, Sahith Theegala, Minwoo Lee, JJ Spaun. just give me all the Sahith and Minwoo Lee here, right? Matt Fitzpatrick, if he were healthy, I think would be a pretty significant favorite to come out of this group because of how well-rounded his play is, how good he's been. But we've got 3 out of 4 missed cuts. We've got him losing strokes on approach in 6 out of 7. If he's still dealing with this is a blanket statement for everybody. If you're dealing with any lingering injury, going to the match play stinks. Because if you're going to go deep, it's 7 matches in 5 days. It's a lot of golf. And a guy who is already seemingly not 100% to go into this gauntlet, I think is really difficult. And I hope he gets healthy. I hope he's healthy right now. I just don't know if we have any indication of that. So then you've got 2 really swaggy young guys who are not afraid of you and are not afraid of anybody, right? Sahith, who is about as volatile as you can get in a match play setting, is so dangerous, right? If he makes a triple, who cares? He loses the hole. And he rattles off 3 birdies in a row, boom, 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 right? Like, that's good in this format. He gained 6 strokes on approach at the Farmers, 7.3 at Riviera. He gave 5 away at the Players. I think a lot of that was on 16. But like, this volatile stat profile is so good for match play. Give me all the Sahith here. And then Minwoo, he's vibing right now, right? Super swaggy guy, comes over from Europe where he's been crushing everybody. He finishes T6 at the Players. Like, there is no give up in this guy, and he thinks he's the best player in the world, and he wants to be the best player in the world. And the combination of these 2 coming out of Group 11 is super, super exciting. No disrespect to JJ Spawn, but there's no chance he wins this group, which probably means he wins it pretty easily and goes 3-0. Back to the other side of the bracket, 13-4. Group 13, Sam Burns, Seamus Power, Adam Scott, Adam Hadwin, wide open, right? Burns is dealing with his driver failing the test at Riviera and having to get a new driver, and he's got a lot of big misses out there, and I'm not particularly confident in the state of his game. Adam Scott, I think, is solid, well-rounded, all the match play experience in the world. Seamus Power, let's actually look up Seamus Power's stat profile here together, but he's got the 2 things that when they get going are really, really dangerous in match play, approach play, and putting. He hasn't putted as well at Bay Hill or at the Players, but man, Seamus Power could be a pretty tough out. Adam Hadwin, when he starts going with the putter, I know it was a disappointing miscut, but that was one bad hole, right? He makes triple, I think, on the second hole on Saturday or on Friday. He was inside the top 10 on Thursday. He's played 1 bad round recently. And if you talk about guys who can get hot with the putter, and it's good to see that he gained strokes putting for the first time after a 3-event stretch. This is super competitive. 13 super competitive. I probably lean Adam Scott. But man, anyone out of this group coming out would not surprise me at all. Group 4 and Patrick Cantlay. Patrick Cantlay, Brian Harmon, KH Lee, Nick Taylor. Buddy, if Patrick Cantlay does not make a run at this thing, right? I'm talking Final Four. I'm talking getting into the championship. He's got a super clean draw here in Brian Harmon, who has really struggled as his B player. KH Lee, who, okay, a little bit of President's Cup stuff, right? But who knows? And then Nick Taylor can strike it well, but does Nick Taylor strike fear in your heart? Not necessarily. Then if he gets out of that, his Sweet 16 path is pretty clean, getting that wide open group of Power, Burns, Scott, and Hadwin. If he gets through that, he might get to Spieth or Homa, but those guys might have cannibalized themselves and beat each other up, or somebody else comes out of those groups. Pretty darn clean path for Patrick Cantlay. And now that he's an equipment free agent, he is absolutely dialed, right? I mean, this is scary stuff here. So driving the ball better than he has in a long time. 4.5 strokes gained off the tee at Riviera, 5.5 at the API, nearly 6 at the Players. The ball striking numbers are insane. He hasn't even putted all that well, and he's got these good results. You know who's really tough to play in match play? Patrick Cantlay, because he is so deliberate. He's going to take a long time. He's going to annoy you. He is not going to get too high. He is not going to get too low. And he is just going to be a robot and destroy you. And it's going to be so annoying. And I just think he is primed to make a deep run at this thing. The other side of the bracket, final two groups. Group 14, that's Terrell Hatton, Russell Henley, Lucas Herbert, Ben Griffin. Feels like a Terrell Hatton group. Maybe Ben Griffin's played well. I'll show you Ben Griffin's stat profile so that we can talk about that for just a second, because he's played well. I wish his approach play was this, where you just give me 2 strokes gained on approach, not lose 4 at API, not lose 8 at Valspar, but he drives it really well. He putts it really well. His short game is stout, but it feels like a Terrell Hatton group. Hatton's got all the match play experience in the world. Hatton is knocking the cover off the ball. 10 strokes gained at the Players Championship, ball striking 10 in Phoenix, 8.5 at API, putting well along the way. This is Hatton, right? This feels like Hatton coming out of Group 14. Group 3, it's not a great draw for Rory, right? Rory's trying to figure out the driver. He gets Keegan Bradley, who is playing great golf. Withdrew last week. I didn't hear any information about why. Maybe it's just to get rested up and to get ready to rock and roll here. But API, he finished T10. He's going to give himself a lot of opportunities around Austin Country Club, and playing a guy like Keegan, who just wants it way too much. Keegan cares way too much. Keegan cares way too much about everything. And I love that about him. But he is gonna be annoying to play in this format. Denny McCarthy also, by the way, talk about having to get guys who are the best putter in the world. Stinks, right? He might just roll in 150 feet of putts and beat you. And by the way, his approach play and tee to green numbers have gotten a lot better. From tee to green, he's gained 5 or more strokes in each of his last 2 starts, Players T13 and Valspar T19. So now he's got, in his last 6 starts, 4 of them are top 20s, 2 missed cuts in the other one, Phoenix and Honda. But man, imagine having to putt and play against Denny McCarthy if he starts making putts. Scott Stallings hasn't played well, but that's a pretty tough Group 3. I think it's probably still Rory that comes out of it, but Keegan's going to be tough. Keegan's going to be really tough. Denny's going to be really tough. That is not a great draw for Rory. I do not think it's particularly a great draw for Jon Rahm. I think it's a pretty good one for Scottie Scheffler, and I think it's a great one for Patrick Cantlay coming out of the corners there. So I think you guys are kind of vibing where I'm going with this. I think there's going to be some upsets here. I think Homa's going to make a deep run. I think Patrick Cantlay is going to make a deep run. So let me continue. Let's do a model here. So what you can do is, obviously you can use any value that you want in the optimizer, but I did load in the custom model. So if you did want to put in your values here. So I think we can keep this pretty clean. I want ball strikers. I want birdie makers. I want putters. I want volatility, all that fun stuff. So what we'll do is actually, let's start with some scoring stuff. We don't usually start with scoring stuff. Let's do birdie or better. 25% of our weights on birdie or better. Strokes gained putting. Let's do strokes gained putting last 36 for 20. Let's do strokes gained approach for the last 36, 20. And then we'll do a little bit. I want to do a little bit on distance, because I do think whether there is anything to back this up or not, if you have to play a guy who bombs it further than you, it stinks. And if you're constantly going first, it's tough. So we're going to put a little bit there. We've got 25 left. We can do, just for kicks, I'm just going to put 10 on around the green, just so that we can just have our complete, strokes game profile there. So we've got 15 left. We could do, we could do course types. We could do course history. We could do... Boy, it's always so tough. Let's just do, let's put the last 15 on the winning odds here, on the implied win, and see that our number 1 golfer, okay, probably no surprise, Jon Rahm. So Jon Rahm, number 1, Scottie Scheffler 2, Finau 3, Homa 4, Jason Day 5. That's interesting. Xander is 6, Hatton is 7, Cantlay is 8. Look at Rory. Rory's 9. That's not good for Rory, obviously. Ricky Fowler is 10. Sung J.M. is 11. So just kind of looking through some of the outliers here. So outliers would be Jason Day being number 5, Terrell Hatton being number 7. Those are good. Rory being 9 and Cantlay being 8. Those aren't particularly good. Fowler being 10 is great for him. Oh, I didn't mention Will Zalatoris. What group is Zalatoris in? He's got to have his own group, doesn't he? Oh, over here. Group 7. Did I skip group 7? I don't know if I skipped group 7, but maybe that's because it speaks to what I think. Will Zalatoris is just wildly underpriced here. $8,900. Just wildly underpriced. He is like 2 starts removed from looking like old Zalatoris again. Not even. I mean, the Players' Championship was not great. Still made the cut. Didn't putt well. Whatever. He gained 5.5 strokes ball striking at API, 7.8 at Riviera, and the putting's been a lot better recently. So I think he's wildly underpriced there. So the model has him at 13th. Has Chris Kirk at 14. Has Minwoo Lee at 15. It's going to be a pretty. Who's last? Who's dead last? Kevin Kisner. Scott Stallings. Yeah. So we can mix this up on Tuesday during the live show. But man, this is just such a good week. So much fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So RickRunGood.com. It's my website. All the stuff's over there. You can go use the match play optimizer. You can get rocking and rolling on that. But yeah, it is going to be an absolute stellar week. Looking forward to it. Best of luck. I'll talk to you guys soon.